Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators. It is Friday, September 6th, 2024. I don't know how you guys are making out, if you guys have survived this week in all good order, but we have Mr. Bryce Wade back, our resident financial whisperer, to try and cipher through some of the insanity and maybe make some sense out of the absurdities going on. Welcome back, Bryce.
Well, thank you to be here. Thank you to be here. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, dude, I totally feel it this week. I am sliding through here with the last of my hair still attached. I feel like this week it's the last month, I guess, has been just smashing home runs after home runs, and really hitting hard. I guess it's kind of like that desperation of trying to get out every important thing that I ever thought of and I ever felt I needed to say or talk about, to get it out now, because I don't know about next week whether we're going to get a chance to talk about anything again or not. And it just kind of seems to be that day by day apprehension, waiting for the shoe to drop, waiting for the next Russia, and bing, we got that one this week, and a couple more scandals this week. It's just been absolutely off the hook with unsustainable insanity this week. Bryce, where do we start?
Well, why don't we start in the U.S. because the biggest economy in the world is kind of important. So the jobs report came out this week, and there's a couple important things. So the SOM rule I talked about a couple weeks ago, which is basically the rule that has predicted a lot of the previous recessions, because it measures the uptick in unemployment, and when it hits a certain level or threshold, basically after that, and this is in relation to the dropping of interest rates, it's basically guaranteed a recession every time in the last 20 years or something like that. And so what we have happening now is that the lies that the American economy is doing great finally got masked off today. We lost a whole bunch of jobs are down, right? And even with, in addition to the massive amounts of illegal immigration, not to mention legal immigration that's happening in the West, so you have less jobs and more people. I don't know how anybody can even defend this absolute nonsense, but here we are. So, yeah.
It's kind of the same shit show up here in Canada. Was it just 2 weeks ago?
Worse, actually.
and worse, but the lying, that's the part that ticks me off so bad. They come out one day, our unemployment rate down to 4.8%. Oops, we did the math wrong. It's actually 6.8.
Yeah, whoops.
Whoops. It's just such a from one day to the next, I've stopped challenging the universe, wondering, can it get any more stupid? Because
it can, and it will.
Every single day without fail. It's just,
my mom always taught me never to say it. It always does.
Yeah. To me, my takeaway this week is, I am really impressed with the climbing capabilities of the new Ford Bronco. Whoever it is just needed better driving lessons, because, man, that dude should have cleared that. I'm impressed with the Ford Bronco. So that's the only tangible takeaway I've got that makes sense out of this past week. But, that gaslighting and absurdity all week, it's been, the shows this week have been, talking about the corruption, the gaslighting, the astroturfing. It's just incensed, incessant. Another $5 billion in scam come out about something or another this morning. How long can a society sustain any form of normalcy when that's the everyday norm?
It can't, and kind of one of the big things that I like to talk to and illuminate to people is that the things that we're seeing, the results, the data that is coming out on a regular basis about how bad things are, is proof and evidence that this stuff is unsustainable, right? We are being pushed down a direction that our country should not be going, doesn't need to go, and if we don't push back and push it down another path, it will collapse. Because in all of human history, there is always a time in each civilizations or countries or nation states or whatever existence where things start to break down. Wrong people are in the wrong place. Corruption, too much incompetence, too much stupidity, and things start to fall apart. And we are in that time now, right? And so the only thing that can happen is one of two things. Either everybody that is not a lunatic, that isn't a corrupt moron, gets together and says, these idiots got to go, or they're going to destroy everything, and then they do that, or that doesn't happen and everything collapses. And so we're going to see, probably in the next year or so, which way Canada goes. And, as much as a white pillar as I try to be, well, I haven't had too much good news on that front for quite a while. I mean, there is lights at the end of the tunnel in some directions, but it is few and far between. So the thing that I like to tell people as much as possible is like, hey, we're all in this together, bro. And sis, if we don't get together on this together, well, these idiots are going to destroy us because nobody's come to save us.
Well, there's a whole bunch in there just over the past week. I follow people in different, levels of expertise or lenses of outlook on things, and I'm getting this varying sense of apprehension from the people, especially when they're talking about the finances. I've got people that are saying, we're potentially 30 days out from the crash or 90 days out from the crash, but the consistency is that it is inevitable and it's likely to happen within the next year, guaranteed. And when I look at some of the other things, and I know just enough to be dangerous. So when I see a notification come across that, even countries like Turkey, and this is kind of a big one that nobody here is going to be hearing about in the legacy news or media, but Turkey announcing that they're joining BRICS now, but the reason why is what really struck me, and that people aren't going to hear. And the reason why Turkey is dumping basically the allegiance to the U.S. Western world is because all we export is woke. They have no interest in making alphabet soup the leaders of their country. They have no interest in unsustained, unchecked illegal migration. They have no interest in any of these things. So because of that, organizations like the EU have been screwing them over, and in Turkey's case, particularly since 2005, dangling this strings of membership over these countries, and they're just saying, nope, we've had enough, because these other people coming together on BRICS there's no strings attached. They can do business with BRICS like they used to be able to do business with us 25, 30 years ago. And we're not seeing or hearing or understanding the implications of all of that. And I want to bring up this quick chart just because it kind of gives a visual, and it's not really that necessarily accurate, but it's the trajectory of the lines that are important. And this is comparing the GDP in essence between the G7 countries and the BRICS countries in 2020. There was quite a disparity between the G7's GDP and BRICS's GDP. But now here we are in 2024, and not only have they converged, but the trajectories are not looking in our favor here in the West when it comes to the US dollar remaining the global currency. How far off is that a fair enough visual representation for dummies like me to say this is not getting better, and it's not going to get better under any of the current forms of leadership that we have?
No, you're exactly right. And there's a quote that about collapse that goes something to the effect of, paraphrasing obviously, that collapses don't happen right away. They happen slowly, and then immediately, right? And so what we're seeing right now is the slow collapse, but eventually it's going to be an immediate collapse. And what I think is going to trigger that in some significant fashion is one of two things: either the complete collapse of the banking system, which I've got a visualization for the people that haven't seen this ever or recently, which I just brought up. So this is a very significant graphical representation of how bad things are as an order of magnitude. Okay, so this dip over here, that's 2008. That's losses for the banks. This is where we're at now. if not worse, because this probably doesn't account for all the nonsense in the back end. But this is a very good representation of how bad things are in the banking industry that haven't hit the economy yet. So there's an easy example of the commercial real estate. The commercial real estate is some of this, right? Because there's trillions of dollars in commercial real estate that is grossly overvalued by probably 50 to 100%, like as a factor. So if it's like worth $10 million, it's probably only worth like 2 because it's underwater. Nobody wants it. Nobody's going to use it. And there's no growth capacity or opportunity for it because there's so many businesses that have gotten out of business. We're in a recession. People need less office space. So commercial real estate is a huge part of this. And there's all of the other derivatives. There's the GICs. There's the interest, not interest bonds. I didn't mean to, what did I say? Yeah, I meant bonds. And there's a couple other things beyond that as well. So you put all this into aggregate, right? And the Ponzi scheme of our economy and how it's organized on debt, right? If you can, the only way that the system can continue is if you keep printing debt, right, to pay off old debt. Now, China is doing this in orders of magnitude worse than this. So I want to make that really clear. So the amount of debt that we have in the West is actually overshadowed as a ratio to what they have is worse in China. So the two biggest economies on the planet, the US and China, are both in dire situations right now. And the China is further down that road, but the US is going down the same road. So this isn't going to end well, I'm telling you now.
Well, to kind of, I guess, compare notes, people remember, kind of what happened in 2008, the housing bubble, the housing crash.
Mm-hmm.
I remember last year in Toronto, Chris Sky speaking to the fact that misrepresentation of value was a major crisis in Toronto, and these places were adjusting their value and then keeping them empty so that they could use these places as tax deductions and money pits, and actually perpetrating the crimes within the real estate industry in Toronto, and the same thing going on in Vancouver. And that cannot sustain itself, and people suffered hard after 2008. When you see this chart here, that kind of tells me, when people say that the coming crash is going to make the dirty 30s look like a walk in Sunday school, I kind of have no choice but to go, holy crap, I think you might be right.
Yeah, because what that looks like for people that haven't seen this is this is what happened in the dirty 30s. This is what happened, and this is what's happening right now, right? And the reason that this happened is that unimaginable amounts of money flowed into the markets because this was a new thing back in the day at the turn of the 20th century, that you could just invest in something as a regular person. You just throw money out there and you make money, right? And this is what a lot of people have been doing for the last like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They'd be like, hey, I'm an investor. I put my money somewhere. I make more money. I get to retirement, in good shape, right? So equities, mutual funds, all of this stuff has pumped the system, right? And it's gone to the top. We're at the top of the market right now, historic highs. All of the super wealthy, high net worth individuals, central banks, all of these people that know what's coming, they're all selling at the height of the market because they know what's coming. This decline, there's a long way down to the bottom, and we haven't even started it yet. So all of the bullshit that's happening right now, all the bullshit that's happened in the last few years, hasn't even started yet. So we're still dealing with the problems that are coming, and they haven't hit the market yet. The massive decline in China hasn't hit the world market yet. Right? They're trying to dump EVs all over the planet to try and save their economy. Ain't going to happen because their real estate has dropped 50+%, and it's not at the bottom yet. Right? Our real estate, like Canadian real estate, US real estate, is starting to crash right now. Right? So demand is down, and the reason for this, just like it is in China, is people are out of money. Right? Where has all of this unbelievable amounts of money gone to? It's been in somebody's pocket. It's been in somebody's account, right? So was a good visual for this. So let's say that you have $100, right? You give $100 loan to a friend, right? That person owes you $100, okay? But now, if I print money out of thin air and I give myself $10,000, this guy I just gave, whoever that is, has $100, but I've got $10,000, literally like 100 times as much money to go and do stuff in the economy. So if he has to pay back that $100, but the price of everything goes up, and he can't make that money back because he's not getting paid enough to cover his expenses, and the price of the expenses goes up, how are you ever going to replace that money? Where did this other money go? Who controls it? Where did it go? Right? And that's what's happening all across the world right now, is that we printed so much money that's gone into specific people's bank accounts and not into the actual economy to do stuff in the economy. It's broken. I don't know how else to explain it. It is broken, and we are watching it break in real time.
Yeah, a good portion of that is going into people like Zelensky's pocket.
Yeah.
This is exactly the stuff that they're doing. Trudeau orders, $1 billion for, what was it, another 500 million for Zelensky here last week or whatever it was. But they're doing this everywhere. $1 billion here, $2 billion there, $50 million there. Da 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 da. None of it actually ever does anything. Never goes to anything. Never produces anything. Ends up in somebody's pocket. Comes out as a scandal. They say, "Oops, sorry," or they don't say anything at all and wait until the next one next week. And meanwhile, they're promising us the blood, sweat, and tears of all Canadians to reimburse all of that money that they're printing and putting into their own damn pockets.
Yeah. So, and actually, I was thinking about this week, and I actually got to see if this is a good analogy for this, right? So, what we think is happening right now is that we've got $100 in our account, or like in our possession, and somebody is basically coming up to us and stealing some of that money from us, right? That's how it kind of feels is happening right now, right? That's how I feel about it anyway. Like, people are just straight up stealing my cash. But it's actually worse than that, because what's actually happening is the person is coming up and stealing our money directly. But not only are they doing that, is they're taking out a loan against what we have and putting it in their pocket, so we didn't even have it to begin with. So it's double the amount of money that they're stealing, because not only is it taken from us that we never saw the use of and we never used to do anything, is we now owe the money that they're stealing from us, and we have to pay interest on top of that. Like, that's insane.
And they, every time that they can get away with finding another excuse, they're going to put money in their own pockets, and they don't care what really happens. It's strictly a grift. It's 100% about how much they can extract while they still have control and in power. There's a couple of good comments in here. Keep an eye on Japan too, because they're the U.S.'s largest debt holder, and their economy is running on steroids too. And that's kind of where people are. You're correct. And so how that works is Japan says, "Oh, Biden, you want to give Zelensky another $500 billion? We'll take that bet. We'll take that marker. American people, they'll work hard enough to pay us back on that." And this is what they're doing. So Japan and some of these other countries are holding all of our debt, and they're going to go bankrupt themselves because there ain't nobody that's paying back enough to cover the interest on the debt. And this just keeps going and going and going, and it just can't until it doesn't. Yeah.
So I'll answer this one, and there's another one from Jane Hardy at 418 for the next comment. Yeah, this is a really good one. I'll cover that in a sec. So Japan is in a very unique position in the world for a couple of reasons. Number one is they have the highest GDP to debt to GDP ratio on the planet, like 200 and something percent. And usually you just get destroyed at like 130+%. And so what they've essentially done is devalued their currency so much. And in Japan, because they have a collapsing demography as well, is that everybody works full time, like not like 40 hours a week, like 80 hours a week.
They work 100 hours a week, or you're just not a good person.
Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons that their birth rates are just getting destroyed, because you have no time for a relationship or to do anything else other than work. And there's other problems too, but those are two of the big ones. And so because of this, and because they are, I don't want to say effectively a vassal state of the U.S., but they are in a couple ways. Like they're definitely different, but they're in the sphere of influence of the U.S. for right or wrong after World War II, and for a long time they benefited from that. And they had a democracy, or have a democracy, right? And they were like, hey, we don't want to be with China because we hate China. And so they're like, well, you got two options on the planet right now. You either part of the G7 and the cool kid crew, or the authoritarian East? Like, which one do you want to be, right? And so you're seeing this all around the world right now. Every country is having this conversation in their upper echelon to say, World War III has started. Whose
Which
side are we going to
side?
take? There's
Yep.
only two, right? Now, for those wise to the game here, there's actually only one side, which is the authoritarian oligarchy that are controlling everything, right? But at the end of the day, they got to wipe people off the planet. So war is great for that. And so what we in the wise to the game need to figure out is, how are we going to decide what our path is going to be moving forward? Are we going to be subservient to either of these two people, or are we going to chart our own path, right? And so when I talk about this, I very specifically say, I don't want to submit to either of these idiots, not the Western oligarchs and not the Eastern authoritarians. In which case, how are we going to be organized? What are we going to do, and what are we going to provide? Because the key thing that separates BRICS from the West is that all of should be specific about this. The thing that separates them in the sense of how their currency is going to be backed, instead of it being with nothing, which is what fiat is, it's going to be backed by resources in gold and silver, right? That's why it is a competitor to the USD at all. Right now, it's still going to be digital. There's still other problems with that, but that is the essence of the idea: is that we have real assets that are going to be backed, or sorry, our currency is going to be backed by real assets, right? And so, with that in mind, Canada is the richest nation on the planet with resources. Like, biggest area, second biggest area. So, like, we're with all the resources that we have, we would be fantastically wealthy if we were organized anywhere near the way that some of the other countries on the planet are, but we're not. So that would be step one in my mind to, righting the ship, is getting rid of all the retards that are destroying the country. So put that aside for a second. But and this is kind of a segue into that other question, is that if we get to the point where things do collapse, the currency collapses because we have too much debt, and that is when the bail-ins will go out, because they need to stabilize the currency and replace it with a central bank digital currency. So that's my prediction, is that when and or if the collapse of the Canadian dollar happens, that's when they will have to do that, because the currency will be worth nothing. Everything denoted in that currency will be worth nothing. And then they'll be like, all right, time to, bail everybody out, bail everybody in, and then roll out the next version, which they've been planning for years. So that's my prediction, unless we change it.
And that is, I guess, kind of in essence the answer to the bail-ins. Will it happen in Canada? That was one of the first things that Christopher Freeland and Justin Trudeau did when they came into power, was to I think that was in their first year, their first term, where they gave themselves
2015 it was.
Yep. Yeah, to seize whatever was in Canadian banks.
True communists.
Yeah. So, when this is what we're not realizing. We're I saw this comment here earlier. Talk about Stockholm syndrome. Absolutely, we continue to play this imaginary monopoly money game with nothing to back it, and we can't repay it. So when the collapse comes, the rest of the world that is looking at this collapse going, well, no, we're going to keep our resources, our materials and our minerals, because that's going to be as good as cash, and BRICS will do business with us with no strings attached. They won't tell us we have to be alphabet soup. They won't tell us we have to throw our borders wide open. This is the monumental shift that's happening around the planet, I think, and this is grossly oversimplifying it, but it's that going back to that multipolar type of world economy. This is this communism new world order thing regurgitating itself. This is just the latest iteration of failure in this insane psychopathic ideology, and we seem to be content, or somewhat content, with riding the submarine that is stuck on dive, dive, dive. And it's ultimately going to implode, and people should be hearing the squeaking and the squealing right now. And I'm kind of, more along the lines of, let's blow the torpedo hatches and pop this sucker right to the surface at this point. But, and my concern with that is, when the collapse comes, Nobody's really prepared for what that's going to look like. They might have some
No.
food, they might have some groceries, but what that's going to look like is going to be absolutely devastating to everybody around them. Even if you're okay as an individual, the by far the majority are not going to be prepared.
No.
So
And
interesting question
I
here on
was
that.
just going to mention that one.
Well, and this is, even me, when I look at what's happening here, a month from now, my $10 is going to buy half as much as what that $10 bill buys right now.
Mhm.
It buys half as much as what it bought 6 months ago. And so as we progressed on this path, that same bit of money that you might have considered earlier is just going to cost you twice as much for half as much, and the writing is on the wall. We don't know when, and that's not my business to know when. It's only to recognize that, hey, the firestorm is on its way, and yeah, do what you can with whatever you got wherever you're at. It's kind of my opinion. But for
Yeah,
for
totally.
folks that are in that situation, what's it looking like this week compared to last week, and what's the difference between savings and investments in precious metals?
Yeah, so just pull up my screen for a second again. So about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we had that blip, which somebody mentioned, Japan. That was because of the Japan carry trade, that we saw $1,000 point drop in the Dow Jones, which is what I was showing earlier with the collapse from the depression to now. That was the Dow Jones. That's kind of one of the metrics of the economy, and you can see right here, right? It topped at $41,000. That 1,000 point drop was down to 39.5. Right, so it went up 2,000 points, maybe basically 5% in a few weeks. Why? Like this is at the same time when the government, at the very least, knew the jobs were bad. Like so what this shows you in real terms is that the people that are betting on this stuff, that the way that this system works is rigged, because there's no conceivable idea that we should be going up when the reality is going down, right? And the only reason that it goes up in the way that it does is for two reasons: one, manipulation, and two, perception, right? And so when you look at the 2008, right, all of the problems that we faced in 2008 in 2008 we were aware of in 2007. But the difference is that they pushed it off. Ben Bernanke came out, oh, it's all good. Don't worry about it. Really strong numbers over here. America's doing great. Don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, one day it was like, oh, no, everything's falling out of the sky. And there's all this bad news that started coming out, and everybody noticed, oh, wow, that's not actually good data. Oh, shit, I better get all. And it's a collapse of perception, right? And so what we're going to see sometime soon is that collapse of perception. And when that happens, that will be when the collapse starts, because people will notice, and the media will say, because somebody will tell them, now start talking about all the bad news, that people will notice all the bad news, and then everything will crash, because that's how it happens every single time.
Well, and I think we're starting to see the red flags of that already. All of these new massive infrastructure projects, factories, all of the things meant to produce a product that they were trying to stimulate in Canada, they're all going, belly flopping before they even get their buildings finished at this point. So that's kind of, to me, that's the big where when you feel the storm coming in and you feel the temperature drop like 5 degrees like that, that's kind of the equivalent in my mind to seeing what's coming there.
Yeah, and what's the word for that? The kind of the sentiment of everybody, like the feeling that everybody has in general, is that there's something wrong, right? Everybody can tell at a fundamental level, my expenses have doubled and I'm still getting paid the same amount of money. That math doesn't make sense, right? You can feel these problems happening in your own life. I can tell that our jobs are bad. I can tell I'm not making as much money. I can tell my expenses are going up, right? And so slowly but surely, everybody's starting to put the pieces together, except about like 30 or 40% of Canada that still, for some reason, supports the NDP and Trudeau, that are doing all of this to us. But that aside for a second, most people are getting wise to the game and saying somebody's responsible for this bullshit, right? And who is it? They may not know who, but they know somebody is doing this to us, right? I've known for a long time there's lots of people that are doing this to us, so I'm a little bit ahead of the curve in that respect. But the point that I'm making is that at some point, people get pissed and say, that's it, right? I think we're coming to that point soon. It hasn't hit yet because the thing that's missing in that mindset is A, I can do something about it, and B, there needs to be a replacement to this problem, right, or a solution to this problem. Because that's why people get pissed. Like, not only am I pissed that bad shit is happening to me, but I know that it doesn't have to happen to me. I know somebody's responsible, and I know that it could be better or it could be something different, right? But we're still missing a couple of those pieces because most people don't really understand how the economy works. So they don't know, hey, this is happening because somebody sucks or somebody's an idiot, rather than this is just how it works, right? There's still a lot of like, well, that's just how it works, right? But after you understand that this isn't how it works, it shouldn't be working like this, well, then you're like, well, why is it working like this? Now I'm pissed because somebody's screwing me over, right? Most people don't get too agitated when they're just getting screwed over because they don't know how bad they're getting screwed over. But when they do notice, I am getting really screwed over, then they're pissed. Look, what do you mean I didn't have to get all my money stolen?
Yeah, this is giving me flashbacks to when we did that watch party series on years and years, and watching the financial, what happened there when the economy collapsed in that, you know, non-realistic, or fantasy, I guess, scripted production. But this is all part and parcel, what we've been screaming about. And you hit a really big point on there is people are getting angry, they're getting frustrated, but they don't see a solution. There's no solution. Who's got an actual dang solution that's viable and feasible? And that is what they're banking on. There is no solution because they have the solution lined up for us, and that's the CBDCs and the digital ID and the UBI. These are all the things, the infrastructure that they are creating because they are intentionally demolishing. It's a controlled demolition of the economy or currency, all of those things. So they're putting that solution together, and people are going to be angry and frustrated, herded into that solution because it's going to be the only damn solution. And at least that's what their plan is to keep us demoralized and isolated and intimidated and in fear long enough to complete the infrastructure, so that they can implement the plan. And I saw a comment yesterday on X that apparently MasterCard has officially launched a CBDC in Europe, and they're like, oh, cryptocurrency, CBDCs. Maybe we should get in on that. People are looking at that, and they don't have a clue for a second that MasterCard is owned by George freaking Soros, and Trudeau gave him $50 million as a signing bonus when he bought MasterCard, for frick's sakes. And so this is again the illusion of a new and better solution, and that's kind of the same process behind BRICS. At the end of the day, it's still the same oligarchs, the same bankers, the same rich people, the same elite people that are funding, financing, creating or lending the infrastructure to BRICS, because they're controlling both sides of the damn fence. And we are here in angry herd mode, being herded into the next pasture of currency and economic solution. And if you survive, they'll have a number and a tag for you too.
Yeah, and well, I can bring up a meme about that kind of, but I mean that's pretty self-explanatory. The pathway that we choose to go down, if we have the choice at all, is one of two things: submission and slavery, or a fight for freedom. I know you don't like that term, but I do, because you have to fight for it, right? Freedom has been fought for and gained over centuries, if not millennia, of people in slavery under control of others that have said enough is enough, and that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. And they had to fight, and many had to die for us to enjoy the freedoms that we do. And that war that we thought we won in World War II is now World War III. It's the same war for freedom that humanity has fought forever. And now we're all on the front line. Now we have people that are trying to enslave us with central bank digital currencies and digital IDs, trying to steal all of our resources and our families and do all of this dumb shit that they're trying to do, right? But at the end of the day, it is still up to us to say yes or no, right? And if you can't even do that, well, we're gonna be nice slaves together, or dead, because I'm not gonna be a slave.
And it's the same damn money changers. Going back
It is.
to, I've been looking through some of these kinds of things, and uh, it's the same generational agenda, the same generational families playing the same generational games. In was in a really long discussion yesterday about this wash, rinse, repeat of history. In the rhyming of it, and I've been looking a little bit more at some of these things and following a little bit more beyond the regular window of noticing, for example, in the Rothschilds, and even for me, I'm still learning more about this. People watch Warren Buffett all the time. I was not really a fan or a supporter. He's was the Robert Kiyosaki, rich dad, poor dad before Robert Kiyosaki, but I was even following the money. I didn't realize he actually had the controlling stake of BlackRock, of all the
Who did?
uh,
Sorry, I missed that.
Warren Buffett.
No way. Yeah, the
Yeah.
controlling vote. The control.
Berkshire Hathaway owns 47% of BlackRock, which is owned. Berkshire
No way.
Hathaway is owned by America
No, that's not
Bank and owned by them.
There's no way that he could own 40% of BlackRock. That's just
47% is controlled by
that's
Berkshire Hathaway, which he owns 100% stake of.
that's enough. I want to see the source for that. That's almost inconceivable.
I'll send it to you, because I was sitting there and I was having a Matrix glitch out moment, going, really? Is it there really that clear and simple? Ian Carroll was the one that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow him too. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, but it's the same deception, the same game.
Yeah.
Baubles and trinkets and beads to sell each other out as a species, and it's happening again.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to, because the difference now between all of human history is the level of technology and the ability to operate things at a distance, right? Because back in the day, you had to send soldiers, be like, "Hey, guy with the sword, get over there and tell that asshole, tell him what's what and what's going to happen, or else," right? You still had to dedicate a lot of time, management, resources, logistics to making sure that somebody with a sword could go over there and make sure that whatever person you were trying to tell what to do actually did what they were supposed to do. But now, with the technology that we have, right? If Caesar, as an example, or Hitler or whoever, like some authoritarian dictator, had the technology level that we do now, which is essentially godlike comparatively, like, you don't have to be there. You can push a button. If anybody here, right, had the ability to be like, man, this guy's really pissing me off. I don't like that person's tone. In fact, that guy's trying to steal from me. He's actually disrespecting me too, and you can just push a button and they would die. I think most people would make that decision to do that, and that's why they're trying to create the infrastructure to do that, because it's far more efficient to just be like, I don't like that, push a button and problem's over, right? If that problem is a person, well, no more person, no more problem, right?
We are literally there. Sylvia, I just gotta drop your heart rate a little bit. Not Robert Kiyosaki is not BlackRock. Warren Buffett is. So just to clarify that for you. But this is when you talk about that, I was reading recently and actually listening to some stuff that Neil Oliver, I didn't know he even did, but he's quite a fan of history as well. But looking at the reign of Charlemagne, the greatest king, the greatest, they called him Caesar, the greatest of all time, established Europe as we knew it. And the reason for the comparison of bringing this up was within 3 years of his death. Everything that took 50 years to create the empire of Charlemagne was over and done with and gone because of the instability. And that's the part that I wanted to get at here now. And the essence of the conversation was looking at the end of feasible, responsible societies and governance. And one of the things that we kind of took for granted was the stability provided throughout the early part of our generation by the Queen and the monarchy in the UK. That was a stable dynasty, allowed business to thrive, prosper, all of those things. And when Queen Elizabeth died, well, nobody cares for the Muppet Meat clan underneath of them, and so allegiances die, treaties, policies, good behavior, respect is gone, and it becomes a free for all in the crime sectors, basically to see who can get the most while the instability is there. And over those periods of time, and this is where coming to the canceling part. In those days they would send somebody with a sword, and that person wouldn't be a problem anymore. Now when they have that kind of issue, they scream Russia, Russia, Russia. They hit a button, and everything that you have ever worked for is over and gone. How different are we?
Very, very little. And I actually argued with somebody on Twitter today about exactly that, because I was like, typically, right, there's a due process to, if there's an indictment or a accusation or what's the other word? Accusation plan. There's an accusation against you. Typically, there's a due process, and you have to have a conviction before anything will happen. But they're skipping that part. They're like, "Oh, you got." It's like somebody saying, "Oh, you did a hate speech right there. Cancel everything that is connected to you. Get them out of here. You're done and gone. No due process. No ability to answer your accuser. No ability to defend yourself against that. You're just poof gone." And that's kind of what is happening, and why they've been talking about cancel culture for literally decades at this point now, or at least a decade anyway. Is that they want people to submit to the idea that if you step out of line, you can lose your life, your livelihood, your family, your ability to work, your money, everything. They want everybody to have that in their head, so that when they actually do it, like, I better shut up so I don't have that happen to me. And that does not work. That you will not obey your way out of tyranny. It does not happen. It never has. It never will. So remove that idea from your mind, right? Because that's what's happening in England right now, is that they accepted this, just like we're accepting C-63 right now. And once that gets passed, they will start doing to you and me and anybody else in society that steps up to the authorities and says no more. They'll be like, well, you're done and gone. You're out of here, because they legally made it possible to cancel people completely out of society for words.
Not just people, but process. Due process has been absolutely canceled. They're going directly to the objective. They completely skipped over the American primaries and thrown Kamala Harris. Like, what part of that resonates with democracy and due process? And it's the same with the cancel culture. The one person I would like to talk to more than anybody else would actually be Stefan Molyneux, because he told us all of this was Stefan Molyneux.
Oh, I don't know that name.
Good luck finding him. He was as controversial as Jordan Peterson, but without being as famous and having the college, the university's tenure and those kinds of things. He's a philosopher, and he got absolutely canceled and literally removed down the memory hole. Seriously, and he had millions of followers, and he said that this cancel culture was the preemptive test run, because if we as a society will allow them to cancel us online, where our whole persona lives and interacts with the rest of the world, if we'll accept genocide in the digital space, we'll accept it in the real world, because it's the digital space that people prioritize over the reality. And he was right. When they canceled him, nobody went looking for Stefan Molyneux. He didn't get the Julian Assange treatment or Edward Snowden. No, he just went down the memory hole, and now they're doing the same thing. And we may as well pull this out here, because this is important about the elimination of due process. Talking about Russia, 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 and these allegations. At this point, only allegations against Lauren Chen, Lauren Southern, Tim Pool, all of these people that are right-wing pundits being canceled, removed, fired. What's that?
He's not there. Some of them aren't even right wing; they're just anti-establishment, which is
Exactly, anti-establishment. Even and immediately, like Glenn Beck fires them. Why? Because they got alleged of doing something wrong, and so immediate separation. Those people will be disposed of. Why? Simply because they were anti-establishment. What are they accused of? Aiding and abetting America's intervention, or Russia's intervention in American politics. Like, really? These are Canadians. How much influence does a couple of Canadians have on American politics? They weren't doing anything to support. They weren't saying anything different than what you and I say every single day, but because they had reach and the ability to get past the level of censorship, down into the memory hole.
well. Think of it like a big. You remember Santa's naughty list? Think of it. Think of everybody on Santa's naughty list. Some people are at the top of that list. Some people are at the bottom. But eventually, they go down that list and get to you eventually. So everybody that's not down with the alphabet soup and all the other dumb nonsense these idiots push. Well, you're on a list, right? And they'll get to you eventually, right? And the Trump is at the top of that. Is the number one person on that list. Elon Musk is probably number 2 or 3. But there's other people that are on that list too, and from every level, from every area of society. Every single person that rises up and says, "Screw this, I'm done. You're an idiot. You're lying to me. I don't believe you. I don't want to hear it." Blah 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 blah. They're like, "You're on a list now, right?" And everybody that did not take the vaccine is on a list, right? They know the people because there is a set number of people in society. They know everybody. We live in the most sophisticated data dragnet in all of human history. Every single person has a cell phone with them at all times. They know exactly how many people there are on this planet. And every single person is on a list. And they have a priority beside that name. And it says, are you a high priority or low priority? But you are a priority because the ultimate goal is you're either under control or dead.
What was the Mel Gibson's was it not Minority Report, where he was the conspiracy theorist, talking about the data harvesting and all of that. There's so many flashbacks to that movie, and how crazy it made him seem, and he became non-functional in society because he knew too many truths, and everybody looked at him like he was batshit crazy, and they were trying to take him out because sooner or later he was starting to make sense. People were starting to notice things. That's kind of how I feel. It was conspiracy theory. That's kind of how I feel a lot of days here when I see them now. And it wasn't that I supported any of those podcasters. I took into account bits and pieces here and there that were of interest to me, but there was nothing in any difference that they would do in being anti-establishment, exposing and mocking the crimes being perpetrated. Nothing different than what we do here. They're just a little farther up Santa's naughty list than what we are here. And this is, again, why I keep, the last couple of months, I just have this pressure inside me that says I got to get it all out now, because I don't know every single day when I go to turn on the show, is it still going to be there? Is it still going to work tomorrow?
And kind of the sad truth and the hard reality is eventually it won't, because what we're seeing right now is the run up to the true kinetic World War III. They are prepping everybody for hey, we got to lock down everybody, martial law, blah blah blah. They already trained everybody through the pandemic to be hey, when I say you stay in your house, you frickin' stay there or else, right? So we're already used to that now, or a lot of people are anyway. Enough people are used to this now that the majority, I think, will go along with it, and they're getting ready to anybody that doesn't go along with it. You can remove those troubled people, right? Because all of these things that are happening right now. Now this is what would normally be construed as a conspiracy theory, but let's just look at the reality, right? You have a massive recession that's planned because our economic system is broken. You have massive amounts of illegal immigrants and people from the other side of the planet that would typically be at war with us because we've been bombing their countries for the last 15, 20 years, right? And you have all of the economic problems that have been systemic starting to come to a head. So you have all of these problems there that are coming to a head. And what are the solution? You give us more money. You shut the hell up. You take a jab, you do this. So all of the problems out there, the only solution is more communism.
Well, with two carrier fleets sitting on Iran's doorstep and half of the Middle East here, if they go to a kinetic war there and they tell every American you are no longer safe, you have to stay in your home, we're going into lockdowns, martial law, essential services, who's going to argue?
Yeah, this is kind of my point. Is that try to conceive of the worst world that you can. Like, what would that look like? Right? What would the worst world that you can think of look like? Where you don't have access to food, water, electricity, you have roving bands of people shooting each other, you can't go anywhere, there's no medicine, right? It's anarchy. It's horrific, the stuff that has happened throughout history when society collapses. And that's what we're facing, right? And so what I like to tell people is that there is nobody on this planet that cares more about you and your family than you do, right? You and your family, or the people that are close to you, are the people that care most about you, right? Those people in your life that you care about need to be the people on your team, that you are wise to the game and you're like, hey, we got to defend ourselves. Because put aside everything that I've just said, okay? The thing that matters most when you're talking about the survival of a group of people is one thing and one thing alone, which is food. Obviously, water is there too, and protection against the elements. But if you don't have food, you die. It's a very, very simple process. And all of civilization is built on that one pillar of us being able to grow food beyond us doing it ourselves. That's the whole reason that we have civilization at all. It's where all civilization came from, is managing food, right? And when that system breaks down, whatever you have left is all you will have left for a while, right? So I will tell people every single episode that I do of this, and every time I speak publicly, the best thing that you can do to prepare for what's coming is make sure you and your family have enough food.
It's like they've picked little bits and pieces out of the worst of all of the movies, whether it's Mad Max, Matrix, Hunger Games, Soylent Green. There's a little bit of all of the nightmares coming to the swamp. Is if they continue to have their way and we don't find some ways to get ahead of them. And I think, to me, the instinctively, for the last number of years, I was always about, fortify yourself, then fortify your community, get your neighbors, find out what you have an abundance of and a shortage of, find trade partners, skills, resources, all of those kinds of things. And that just comes instinctually to me as, I guess, the years of emergency preparedness and response training, everything that was my career, dealing with disasters and those kinds of things. It's I might be a little bit oversimplistic in what I think we need to do, but I also see it as the only way to beat these guys is at the point, because we cannot seem to get away from the tribalism long enough to get a new and better system. So the only next alternative is going to be attrition. Can we outlast them and say, no, we don't want to take part in your reindeer games. We're not willing to trade our our safety for your security, for lack of a better word. But that's to me where humanity's going to decide itself. Do we take the 30 pieces of silver to play and to have that sense of security as a whole? And I'm not talking about individually. As a whole, I'm very afraid of that. As I look through the annals of history, whether it's Germany or Stalin or Marx or Pol Pot or any of those guys, people went with the status quo at exactly those times in history, and this is my biggest fear.
Yeah, mine too. And this is why I started talking the way I do. Like, I've known this stuff for a long time, but I didn't speak publicly about it because I'm like, hey, we like, we're in Canada, we'll be okay. We're conservative in the sense that we don't do crazy stuff, right? So maybe there's probably a better word for that, but whatever. And I was like, we're separate from. I used to have this belief that Canada was strong, like this idea that Canadians were a group of people that liked collaboration enough and detested violence enough that we could protect our society from the nefarious people on the planet that were out to destroy things, right? That is an illusion that I don't hold anymore, obviously. and so what you have to replace that with is, well, if these idiots are A, part of the problem, and B, making it worse, what does that leave me? Where does that leave us? Where does that leave my family? Where does that leave my community? And it leaves us vulnerable, right? And the reason that we're vulnerable is because they want us vulnerable, because they don't want resistance. So what does that tell you? That you, your family, your community, wherever you live, is literally irrelevant. This applies to everyone everywhere all the time, is that you, your family, and your community need to be as strong as possible, organized as much as possible, and have as much skills, resources, and assets necessary to enact your survival, regardless of what's happening outside of your community. I consider my community humanity. Very few people do. That's fine, right? There's a whole bunch of different levels. I at least have the good sense that Canada as a society is one of my communities, right? I want my community, my society to do well. I want other societies to do well as well. But if another society wants the destruction of mine, they can go get bent. And there's a whole bunch of people that definitely want that for us. But my kind of ultimate point here is that whatever level that you live on, be it your personal, your family, your community, whatever that community level is, you are not alone, right? There's lots of people that we found and lost during the pandemic because of various reasons. But the core of that was like, you will find people when you speak up. If you care about something, you will find other people that care about that thing too. And what everybody needs to care about the most now is survival, because that's what we are facing.
Yeah, it's that if you want to, like the meme goes, if you want to survive what's coming, get yourself a conspiracy theorist friend and hold on tight, do everything that they say. I want to pull up this comment here. Stefan, we used to be strong. We still have strong individuals, but what we have is a weak society. We have a demoralized, traumatized, abused society that is, similar to response capabilities of the extremely battered wife syndrome. That's kind of where society is at. As a whole, it is a global problem, but we're going to have to be the ones to realize that at some point there's going to be there's going to be, and it's the point about humanity is my people. And I'm getting into a few more tiffs about this lately, because everybody wants to identify with their pronouns first. So I'm French Canadian, or I'm Indigenous Canadian, and I'm like, get fucking bent. At this point, it doesn't matter what you are, because we're all going to go into the same hole, the same way, stiff
gulag
and cold. If you want to make these separations and find reasons and excuses, I speak for the benefit of all Canadians, all humanity, in what I'm trying to warn them of. I'm not warning just one class or one tier or one group of people. And if people want to come at me with that kind of bunk, well, you are the problem directly at this point, because you are looking for to negotiate a better advantage than the rest of the humans. You want a better berth on the ark, and I don't give two shits about that. We are all the same, or we are nothing. And that's kind of just my take on all of that. We are absolutely all in this bullshit together, and we're all going to end up the same reduced carbon if we don't put away a bunch of that insanity. Final thoughts tonight, Bryce? Are we going to be here next week? Hey, we're coming up on the 6-month show mark here. This is episode 24. Week after next is kind of like an anniversary day. Are we going to make it that far?
We will. But I'm telling you now that like the distance of the distance that we are to the edge of the cliff is not far. We cannot kick this can down the road anymore. It will not go another generation. We're not gonna be like living off our survival, or living off our life savings, 20 years from now, unless major things change. Because the plan that they have for us is not for our benefit, right? And so if we're gonna chart our path not down what they want for us, we're gonna have to do it together. And one of the ways that you can do that is protect your net wealth with gold and silver. That's what I help people do. Just do a small plug here, because all of this stuff that I talk about, just in general, food first, number one. Like, even if you don't have any money for gold and silver, that's fine. I'm not pushing it in that way. I'm just telling you that if you have limited means, skills, assets, resources, food, the ability to help people, first aid skills, stuff like that, that is intrinsically valuable for when things go sideways, right? You want to be up in your game, making all the money that you can right now, because soon it's going to be a lot more difficult and the world's going to be a lot tougher place. And so what I tell people now is do what you can now, do what you can on a daily basis, because we're going to be out of time soon.
Yeah, and for people that have questions or curiosities, go to whatsupcanada.org. You just click on the top of the toolbar. You'll see. Bear with it; it's a little slow, but you'll see a place to click on for New World Precious Metals. You'll come up to this page here. Schedule a call. There's no commitment. There is no cost. You'll get a chance to talk to people that can answer your questions if you do have specific questions. If you've got there we go. My internet's a little slow. Right up on top, you can find Precious Metals up on top there. Click on that. That'll take you over to the page that I just showed you guys. Reach out to you probably get a hold of Warren first.
If it comes from you, you'll probably talk to me actually, because I'm essentially taking a lot of the leads that come from you. So if you want to talk to me, just set up a call and then I'll talk to you about this. And to answer Carly's question at 502 there, how can you convert RRSPs into gold? That's actually easy. So we work with Questrade, one of the financial institutions in Canada that allow to do registered accounts with precious metals. So we can absolutely help you with that. It's really easy.
There you go.
And sorry, it's physical only, no paper. We don't do any paper of any sort at all.
And that's for a significant point to make for people that maybe have destinations or alternative solutions, plans, bug outs, whatever the case might be. It's all physical, and it's about a 72-hour turnaround, I believe, to have that physical material transferred to a whole bunch of different locations if you want to be even more securely than that. And for me, that's a big point in what you guys do, because it's not in a bank. It's not a piece of paper with a number attached to it that has no actual value attached to it in a bank vault somewhere that Trudeau can say, okay, we're not even coming for your real stuff. We're just coming for the number that's attached to your stuff, and you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, and actually, when somebody was mentioning bail-ins, right? This is one of the ways that you can protect yourself against bail-ins. So you're insured up to $100,000 in Canada. Anything above that is uninsured, so you don't want to have more than $100,000 in any bank account if you do. But the side kind of aside to that is, if the bank collapses, you're not going to get your $100,000 because the bank's collapsed, because that's what facilitates you getting that money if you get it at all. And there isn't enough money in insurance to cover the whole country's banking system collapsing. So a bail-in is the band-aid for that process. And so we in the wholesale program, which is what you were just mentioning, and Questrade, neither of those two structures have the gold in a bank vault. It's in a private vault that they can't touch. So that's one of the ways that you can protect your higher amounts of net worth. But I tell everybody is like, you want what gold buys. It's cheap now compared to what it will be when nobody's manufacturing this stuff, or we can't import it from China because it's cheap and we're at war with China. So get the stuff that you think you're going to need now, and whatever you can't get now, put that excess capital into gold and silver so you actually have it and it doesn't get inflated away or taken from you. That's kind of and this isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or advisor. I'm just telling you, this is what's happened throughout history, and this is why people use gold and silver, to protect the stuff that they can't use now.
One really great question here. They go to bail-ins. How does that work for material, physical golds and precious metals in a collapse?
Yeah, the short answer to this is you'd essentially have to time the collapse more or less, because, like I said, it'll be slowly, and then suddenly, right? And so if you see that slowly starting to speed up, then if you want to pull your gold and silver out, you can. And generally, what I tell people is that there's three options that we have, and that's completely out of the system, which is physically in your hand. So if you don't trust anything at all, just take it all in physical and have it at your house and bury it in the backyard or something and keep it on hand. So if you absolutely don't trust anybody, just keep it on hand. That's the ultimate safe haven, is you physically have it, right? If you do trust the system to stay afloat for another few years, because we have until 2030, basically sometime in the next 20 to 30, I think it's going to happen next year, to be fair, but whatever, make your own decisions. You can have a registered account. If you don't trust them, you can take the hit on taxes, pull it completely out. You can put it in the wholesale program, which is more secure, and you can get it back into fiat if you want to. But like I said, if you don't trust it at all, just pull it all out and get into physical assets or hard gold and silver.
I'm going to pull this one from Mouth of the South. The banks crash. How do we pay our mortgages? Well, I think the trick question there, Mouth of the South, is you aren't supposed to. That is part of the you will own nothing and you will be happy, where if you take the 30 pieces of silver, they'll let you back into your house to live in it and look after it. And they'll take a token of your allotment each month for you to behave and live there, is the essence of the strategy of the plan for these guys moving forward. So
a lot of good questions now. Do you want to go through a couple of these, or do you want to answer?
If there's something there, which one do you want to pull up?
There's two. So Stephen Rogerson at 506. What happened to Canada's gold reserves? It's a good question, actually. So So context. The U.S. supposedly has about 8,000 tons of gold. That's the highest in sovereign hands. But there's like 250,000 tons of gold on the planet total. So where's that stuff? Your guess is as good as mine. And they supposedly have the most. China probably has the most now. And Canada used to have about 1,000 tons, and we sold it all off. Our loser, no good, asshole politicians sold all of our gold reserves. So Canadian currency is backed by literally nothing but other currencies, which is essentially worthless. So what I'm telling you, that eventually this is not going to work anymore, this is one of the reasons, is because we don't have anything backing up our currency. Nothing.
Yeah. This question here from PDS 10, if I buy gold and silver and currency is worth shit, how do I buy things with gold? It's for me, my answer to the solution, that is fractionals, smaller amounts. If our currency collapses, it doesn't mean trade around the world is going to collapse. People that are going to be offering commodities and values, and whoever's better at the barter system and negotiations is going to find an acceptable value based on what they know that the commodities are worth, and we're still going to be able to do business and to trade. But I think that when that point comes, it's going to be less currency, less of this that's going to be currency, and it's going to be more of this.
yeah. And so I'll make this quick point, and then we can probably end after this. So there's 4 ways that you can make a transaction. Bartering, which is the original. You've got a goat, I've got wheat, let's make a trade, and we agree at some point, or how much goats or how much wheat or whatever. We make an agreement, basically. There is hard assets, which is essentially gold and silver. It could be bark, it could be seashells, it could be anything, but it's basically an intermediary and a baseline of cost that you can price things in for a trade, which is why we upgraded from barter to a gold-based system or a silver-based system, because it's easier to make transactions. Then you have fiat, which is essentially debt, and now you have cryptocurrencies and central bank digital currencies, right? But ultimately, these three, the first three, rely on an agreement of a price, right? You agree that I'm going to pay this amount to get whatever thing that you're selling, right? And so you have to be able to make the agreement with gold or silver or whatever that says, hey, I'll give you a silver coin plus a phone or electricity or a rock or whatever. You have to make the deal, right? So because all things in society are either by consent or by force, right? And so open, active, free trade, which is what we've all grown up being used to, is a voluntary process. You have a thing, I agree consensually to give you this amount of money for the thing that you're going to sell me, right? Yep. A by force trade is the government essentially saying, you are going to buy this thing at this price, boop, and you buy it. And you don't have a choice because that's the system that you live in, and tough shit, right? And so if you don't want to live in that system, which I don't, and I hope you don't either, well, you have to have another option. And gold and silver is the physical ability to make a transaction. Not with fiat currency, not with a credit card, not with some bullshit number on the internet or whatever. A physical agreement that says, I am going to give you this thing for the thing that you have. right? That is the essence of what an economy is. That will never go away because there will always be people that need something that they don't have and somebody else has something that they don't need, right? That is what causes transactions to happen so that we can have a society and civilization and live together in some way, shape, or form that isn't just total chaos, right? Because this is the essence of what an economy is. That will always be there. It's a matter of who controls it and how much of freedom you have within that system to choose what you want to buy or sell. That's the key.
One more comment here. What about your life insurance? I'm sorry, but at that point in time, if we get to that point, the best value your life insurance policies are going to be for our fire starter. There's going to be no value, no power, no teeth to them. They might offer you a state, a UBI, a digital ID in exchange for forfeiting your whatever your promise might be. It might be a negotiation tactic, but when the money is gone, the corporations, they're not going to be beholden or worried about paying out their debt to any individuals. So
yeah.
All right.
Those are my final thoughts.
Chaos right on point as per the usual. I guess we'll see what happens between now and next week. Things are changing. The insanity is getting louder. The charades in Ottawa are getting Hollywood worthy almost. Almost worth getting some popcorn for the swing show. It's
just a loser, dude.
I think he actually believes that he's going to become the loyal opposition out of this. And he might.
So when I become prime minister is the funniest thing that guy's ever said.
How humiliating. I saw that clip. He looked like a shrunken child being bullied in that moment when he said, when I become prime minister, and the whole parliament laughed. You could literally watch him shrink. How he could come out and pretend to have cojones the next day was absolutely beyond comprehension to me. It is absolutely a stage show and theater, but he's the whole thing is coming apart, and I think that he's actually making a play that he could survive better than Trudeau in the coming election and keep his pension.
It's ludicrous, and like the fact that it's like, oh, my pension has nothing to do with it, but then you like on a daily basis contradict yourself. This guy, Trudeau guy, is the worst ever, but I still, while we might support him, it's got to be a case by case basis. Like it's delusional.
Sorry, Esky, I don't know how to make it any more cheerful than what we do, because if we put it into the perspective that most people would or do, I don't want you all jumping off a cliff. I want you figuring out that we don't need to. At some point, we will figure it out, right?
Never give up, never surrender.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Bryce, and we will do it same time, same place next week. Never give up, never surrender. Amen on that. Guys, you know where to find us. You'll find a link to Bryce's X in the show description on any of the platforms except for X. They don't put a show description on X, but yeah, we'll see you next time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators, that's it for this week. And I'm not going to lie, I am so spent. It's going to be unplug and chill for me for a couple of days. Try to let the brain rattle down a little bit. Been some big, heavy shows this last couple of weeks, and that is going to continue. We'll see what happens over the weekend, but back to Clown World next Monday, same time, same place, 7 o'clock Eastern. We'll see you on Monday. Bye for now.
In times of global instability, soaring inflation and massive debt, gold and silver have proven to be unshakable pillars of wealth. New World Precious Metals, based in Calgary, Canada, is a leading international brokerage. We offer an easy, secure and cost-effective platform for investing in gold and silver, including our international wholesale program and registered retirement savings accounts. Protect your money outside traditional banking with our physical precious metals, privately vaulted outside the banking system at secure, insured exchanges worldwide. Gold and silver have been trusted assets for generations, with current projections indicating high returns. And with unprecedented demand from governments, banks, and investors, there are now shortages. Precious metals thrive during inflation, geopolitical instability, and currency devaluation. Sound familiar? Now is the time to invest in gold and silver, whether in your international investment account or by transferring registered retirement savings accounts. Experience the security of physical precious metals, combining the safety of physical assets with the flexibility of being like your own bank, offering instant liquidity and a financed line of credit. With precious metals on the rise, don't miss this generational opportunity to protect your wealth. At New World Precious Metals, we ensure your wealth meets its potential. Contact us today and our personal brokers will guide you every step of the way.